everybody. Welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed your sessions. We're in the home stretch now. We have just one more storytelling session left with one very special guest. So I'm going to hand things over to Sarah. Sarah, take it away.
Thank you, Carol. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to my fellow Abby Steinbach for all her invaluable work on this conference. And now I'm honored to be able to introduce our next storytelling guest. Many years ago, during a 5-year tenure as a shelter veterinarian in a struggling depressed area of California, Dr. Kwane began to form a true appreciation for those that struggle to afford health care for their pets. One day on a whim, he headed downtown with some medical supplies. He set up a table near a homeless food bank and invited anyone with a pet to be examined and treated at no charge. It was the most memorable day of his career. Afterward, he made more consistent efforts to find people experiencing homelessness wherever they were and give free medical aid to their pets. Now, years later, his journey is being chronicled on a television series called The Street Vet, and it follows him as he travels the streets of California, helping pets and people alike while retrieving some of the most remarkable and inspiring stories of sacrifice and hope. We have watched him interact with compassion and deliver care and hope to people experiencing street homelessness and their animals on television. And now we have the privilege of hearing from him live today. Everyone, please welcome Dr. Kwane Stewart.
Hello, hello, and thank you, Sarah, for that nice, warm welcome. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, I'm getting nods, so okay, good. Thank you for all that. Yeah, it really is my privilege to be here and talk to you for a few moments about the mission I've been on, what led me here, and why it's so vital and important, especially today. It has been a labor of love, as veterinary medicine is, but it's also rejuvenated my career and just my philosophy that kindness in the world is in short supply. So I'm doing what I can. I think I'm supposed to prompt you guys how to work the show. So I think we're going to go on to the next slide, and I have a short video that I wanted you all to watch.
Animals mean a lot to a lot of people, and I can't stand when people just say like, oh, it's just a dog. I mean, he's my best friend. So this is my first experience being homeless, and it's been about 8 months, which is about 8 months longer than I thought it would be. So,
I'm curious how, what was your past about, and how'd you wind up here?
Oh.
Would you mind if I take a look at him?
Please.
Yeah. This is a condition called entropion. To be corrected permanently needs surgery. My way of giving back was to come out and find people that have pets. I want to get him some help, and I think we should do it sooner than later. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, man, I love him. He's my son.
There's a tooth in there that's infected and needs to come out as soon as possible.
The world needs more people like you.
Thank you.
And more people just out here to help each other.
So with a little help from my friends, we reveal that giving a little,
this is the best thing that's ever happened.
Can make all the difference.
Woo! I love you.
The tough days are tough, but we always celebrate the victories really hard. The good days, the saves. Those are the days you walk away, you remember, you try to hold on to. You seem like a survivor.
I don't think I'd be nearly as strong as that.
My encounters will surprise you. I've never seen this before. I've never seen that. You've never seen this before either. And they will certainly inspire you.
We have bad times now, but we're going to have good times in the future.
Second chances are right around the corner. Dr. Kwane, a straight man.
Thank you for showing that. I apologize. I think it was a little grainy. I don't know. It came out on everybody else's end, but it was supposed to run smooth. Those are just some images from the docuseries that we chronicled. We made that about 4 years ago. It took about a year to make, and it just I take you along on a journey and I show you my travels throughout California, helping some of the unhoused and their pets. So let me get into this. I'll take any questions at the end, but this is where it began for me. I was a shelter vet for about 5 years, exactly 5 years to the day, because that is when my pension for the county vested. And the 5 years at the shelter were some of the most rewarding years of my life, but they were also the hardest. Euthanizing the number of animals, volume of animals that we had, it's soul crushing. And there were some great moments. I cut the euthanasia rate in half and we doubled adoptions. And during my tenure, we built a brand new state-of-the-art shelter. But the euthanasia start to crush you over time. So I did my time. It was 5 years. But those 5 years were tough, in addition, because it was during the time of the recession. And, you know, when people suffer, then their animals and society's pets also feel it as well. So we were getting cardboard boxes of kittens, sometimes 2, 3, 4 litters a morning during the springtime, dropped off at the shelter, and a lot of them sick. And again, just unfortunately led to a lot of euthanasia. It was a very tough time during my career. And when I was doing a lot of this, I realized that I wanted to get back to saving and doing it on my terms and my time. We can go on to the next slide. And that's when I decided to go out to the streets and delivering care. I didn't really have a plan. I'll be completely honest. And if I'm being fully transparent, I will tell you, before I started doing this work, I had a lot of my own prejudgments about homelessness and the unhoused. For example, I might see a 30-year-old able-bodied man panhandling on the corner, and my first thought was, why don't you get a job? I think a lot of us in today's society do that. We pile on immediate judgment, and I think that judgment keeps us back from showing acts of kindness, from maybe asking if they needed help or what can I do, or just having a conversation with them. I think a lot of times it just holds a lot of us back, and I did that for many, many years, until one day when I was working at the shelter, I ran into a gentleman at a 7-Eleven, and I would frequent the 7-Eleven to get gas or coffee, and he was sitting outside with his dog. And I recall for maybe 10 or 12 times seeing this gentleman before, I would walk by him without making eye contact. And sometimes you almost do it intentionally to avoid them catching your eye and then asking you something. So I would just blow past this guy, go in and get my coffee and run out, until one day I noticed that his dog had what looked like some sort of allergy or flea condition. And it was bad. When fleas get so bad on a dog, they've had it for months and months without treatment, it can start to engulf their entire body. And this dog looked like a burn victim on his hind end. He just had no hair. The skin was red and bumpy, infected. And, I decided to stop over and I asked the gentleman, I see that I'm Dr. Kwane Stewart. I'm a veterinarian. I see your dog has what looks like a flea issue. And he looked at me and said, yes, I don't know what to do. He was desperate. And I said, if you're here tomorrow, I'm going to stop by with something that may help. I returned the next day. It was just a basic flea treatment. It was probably $3 out of my pocket in less than 5 minutes of my time. And I saw that same dog 10 days later, and it was completely transformed. And that was the moment for me. I decided then that there was a lot more to this if I could find the time to do it. And the man looked up at me with tears in his eyes. And when I think of this moment, I still get choked up myself. He just said, thank you. I knew that I was going to keep doing this work. I just didn't know exactly how it was going to look. And I certainly didn't know it was going to go on for 12 years, because this is now 11, 12 years I've been doing the work. We can go to the next slide. I give talks to veterinary schools and students interested in my field. And so some of this is fashion for them. They're always curious to know what I can treat on the streets, how much I can do out of my little kit there. It's like my little utility belt. And surprisingly, I can do quite a bit. I can treat about 80% of the medical cases I encounter on the streets. And here in Southern California, we see a lot of ear infections. We see a lot of allergies, fleas, And then what's somewhat typical of dogs that live on the streets, I may see some lameness, especially in our older geriatric dogs, and things like overgrown toenails. So on to the next slide. I carry antibiotics with me, anti-inflammatories, vaccines, things to clean ears and treat ear infections. And remarkably I can cover about 80% of what I see right there on the streets. And when I encounter these people, I'll tell you, it surprises them because I can be walking down an alley and turn a corner, say around a dumpster, and there's somebody living there under a tarp or in a sleeping bag that has a pet. And sometimes I'll startle them, and it'll startle me. And the first thing I'll say is I'll introduce myself. I'm a veterinarian. My name is Kwane Stewart, and I walk this area looking for people who have pets with needs. And if you'll allow me, I'd be happy to examine and treat your pet for free at no cost. And I'd say about 95% of people allow it. Some are a little reticent. They don't know my true intentions. They've never seen me before, my animal control, my law enforcement. So I will get some suspicious looks at times, but most of the time, if they'll just nod their head, I'll kneel down and I'll get right to work. I'll take out my stethoscope and just start a full exam right there. And as I do, this immediate relationship starts to blossom. Let me go to the next slide. I realized that there is this thread, this common thread we all share when we're pet lovers. And when we start talking about their pets and I start talking about mine, there is sort of this immediate trust that we encounter and enjoy. And I'll tell you, oftentimes I leave there with what I would call a friend. And I would like to think they think the same. There's a saying I like that no one will ever touch you so lightly they won't leave a trace. And I have seen, I started to lose count, but somewhere in the neighborhood of 800, 900, maybe 1,000 plus individuals on the streets that I've treated. And I've got to know a lot of them pretty well. I will spend as much time as they need or as much time as they want to talk, doting and caring for their pet. And these are special interactions.
Hi, Kristen. Welcome.
Next slide. As always, I can encounter any number of things. Pregnant dog. This slide here shows a young man named Justin who I met on the streets here, I believe in Venice Beach years ago. This has been about 5 years ago. Soon after meeting him, his cat was hit by a car and it required extensive surgery, reconstructive surgery of his femur. It torn his diaphragm, his intestines were pushed up into his chest. It was about a $12,000 in total care package that Justin could not pay for, but the medical team and myself rallied behind Justin and we got the care and saved his little life. And still today I hear from Justin. One thing I was going to mention is I typically give out my cell number, and I need to rethink this, but I usually give out my cell number to just about everybody I meet on the streets. Because I feel like I am their veterinarian. And if they need to reach me for any reason, there's a reaction, recheck is needed, they just want to update me on the condition, I feel like they need to be able to reach me. So I've been now for the better part, I don't know, 8 or 9 years, I've been handing out my personal cell number. And I still hear from a lot of them, sometimes just to say hi. And Justin is living up in the Bay Area and him and are doing well. Next slide. I did mention the pregnant Chihuahua that I came across. This was long ago. This is less than 5 months ago. She was in active labor for the better part of 24 hours and dying. And I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. And we rushed her into surgery. We saved her life. Unfortunately, we were unable to save the lives of her 2 little babies. But I feel like had we not come along, within the next 2 to 3 hours, she probably would have perished. She was dehydrated and her electrolytes were completely imbalanced, and she had a very high respiratory rate. And yeah, she was close to dying. And sadly, again, we couldn't save babies, but mom was taking care of and spayed, and she's doing well today. Next slide. So the future, what does this look like going forward? I'm still putting that together, if I'm being honest. I never knew it was going to reach this point in the first place. When I started doing this, it was my own personal quiet crusade. I didn't want any notoriety or attention for it. I didn't even tell my family. I would go out on some weekends and free time and walk the streets and find pets that needed care. And now here I am a decade later, and I can dream. The word is spread, the show is made. I get requests and social media DMs from around the world of people that want to do the same work. So recently partnered with Fetch by the Dodo. Fetch is a pet insurance company, and they're going to put the Street Vet on a much bigger platform and allow me to spread this to other cities around the country. So to answer that question, I don't know. I don't know how big I can dream or how big this may get, but I know that homelessness, sadly, is not going to end anytime soon. I do wish I could be put out of work, but it's not. So as long as this issue exists, I will be doing this work. Next slide. Quickly, what I've learned. I know that, as I said, when I started doing this, I had prejudices of my own, and I regret that, but I have learned quite a bit on this 10-year journey. And when people ask me, what do you think, or what have I learned, I usually give the same response, that these people are just people, and they're at a point in their lives where they're struggling for whatever reason. It's not my job to understand it or explain it, but we've all hit places in our lives, times in our lives where we need help, and they need help, not judgment. So I set aside any preconceived notions, and to me, it's another fellow human being with a pet that needs my help, and I try and deliver on that. So as I said, as I started, kindness, I feel like is in very short supply these days, and this is just my quiet, personal way of trying to give it back. Next slide. And that's it. I'll take any questions now, but as I said, when I was a shelter vet, I was really at the end of my rope. I'd considered many days on just quitting the profession altogether. And it was this that brought me back. I realized that if you believe sort of in destiny, I had a larger calling to not just serve those who could pay for care, but to serve those who couldn't. And so as long as there is a need, I will continue to do this work. Thank you. And yes, if anybody has any questions, I'd love to take them.
Thank you, Dr. Kwan. I will read some of the questions for you. Oh, what do you mean by make street medicine legitimate? Is it not well received in the veterinary field?
Yeah, great question. So when I was in school, I graduated in 1997. So I'm in my 25th year of practice, which is hard to say. There was no such thing as street medicine. In fact, shelter medicine wasn't really a thing at the time. And as we know, shelter medicine has taken over. But there was no way to track or do anything in the shelter medicine realm, and certainly not in the street medicine realm. So it's just now becoming a thing, if you want to say that, quote unquote, a thing, where you can learn about aspects of delivering care to this population of people. So it's finally pushing its way into academia. And yeah, it's one of the reasons I get called upon to lecture to some of the students.
Where do you do your surgeries?
Well, prior to just opening up my new clinic, which I'm sitting in now, it's been open for all of about 2 weeks. It's in San Diego. I would have to call favors. I'd call colleagues and, can you cut your costs? I did this work for about 8 years out of my own pocket. I would carve aside a portion of my salary that I could comfortably live without, and I would finance these procedures and surgeries myself. But sometimes they get expensive. As I said, $3,000, $4,000 for certain procedures. And so I would have to call and beg and, doctor friend, can you lower your costs or do it pro bono? And yeah, but look, there's no ego in this game. I'd beg my way over and over again if I had to serve these animals.
That actually leads into the next question, which is, where does your funding come from? This is from an organization that says we've struggled with finding grants that will cover care for owned animals. Yes.
So up until about 3 years ago, as I said, it was my money, but I started a GoFundMe. And the GoFundMe got noticed rather quickly because they named me the Hero of the Month. And with that launched just a much bigger, broader platform for me. And then the donations flowed rather quickly. And so now we have a rather large bucket of money for me to draw from. I never have to turn anybody away. I can tell you that now. There were times back 5-6 years ago where things were too costly and I just had to say, no, I can't do it out of my own pocket. But now, as of these last 2 years, I haven't had to turn any pet away for any procedure.
That's wonderful. When you say street team, who else supports your work? Someone else was asking, do you have a team of techs with you or so forth? Who else can get involved, if anyone?
Yeah, so the last slide showed some contact information. And if you reach out and you have interest in doing the same thing, I do have, it's an established, legitimate 501c3 now, as of about 6 months ago. It's called Project Street Vet. And I have an executive director, I have a few volunteers, and if you reach out and it's something you're interested in doing, whether you do it with me, you want to come with me sometime in LA and Skid Row in San Diego, I'd love to have anybody come along, or it's in your own town or city, we have an avenue now to set something up similar where you live. I
myself am California based, and there are many people here who are California based, so I'm sure we'll take you up on that. I think we have one more question. Well, first we wanted to say that we at My Dog Is My Home place tremendous value on ethical storytelling. So we give you a lot of credit for carrying that out in your TV series in a way that feels respectful of people, their relationships, and their stories. So we had some questions about that. Can you tell us some more about some of the creative decisions you've had to make as one of the creators of the show? And was there a conscious decision you made to take a strengths-based approach to the way that you present the stories?
You said, what was the last part of the question? What type of approach?
Strengths-based approach.
Yeah, so I was heavily involved in the creative aspect of the show. Funny enough and cool enough, my brother produced the show. So my brother works in film. We grew up together. I have one younger sibling. He's still in Albuquerque where we grew up with my family, but he works on the film side. He does editing and filming, and he was able to pull together the team that gallivanted all around California with me filming this series. So it was he and I basically collaborating on different aspects of the show and the stories we wanted to tell, what kind of story arc we needed, and giving attention or being mindful that we wanted to place the plight of these folks in the best possible light. Because depending on how you want to tell the story, if you want to tell it, depressing and gritty, you could show more mental illness or substance abuse. And the show was not about that. It was to show people, good people that were struggling, who had pets, who leaned on their pets for more ways than the average pet owner will ever understand, including me. We wanted to highlight and showcase those stories of love and the connections and the bond. So we did our best. We felt like we pulled it off pretty well because it was never about exploiting anybody. We just wanted to tell a good story.
Yeah, I think many will agree that you pulled that off very well and this presentation very well. And we're grateful to you for bringing the issue of homelessness and animal companionship to a huge stage. So it is an honor for us to have you here today.
Thank you. It was my privilege to give you some time. And again, contact is right there if anybody wants to reach out with questions or any support or ideas. We're here. This is a growing charitable organization. I believe heavily that these pets should never be separated from their owners. And I know we're just now starting to tackle the issue of creating an avenue for them to keep their pets in temporary housing and so forth and sheltering. And I'm glad you guys support that effort. It's obviously all this has become very close to my heart as well. And we're all in this together. So thank you all. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. And now back to Carol.